Welcome back to Giants Latest. Hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all things Giants. Let's talk about the rest of the Giants draft picks that we haven't really dove into just yet. Let's start with their tight end, Thomas Fedone, the second. We got another Italian on our hands. So if Tommy DeVito gets pushed to the practice squad, we still got Fedone. And I'm pretty sure that Scataboo is also Italian. So as an Italian American myself, I am here for it. So, all right, let's talk about Thomas Fedone. Here's what you need to know. He is 6'5", 243 pounds, so one of the bigger tight ends, which we've talked about this a lot when it comes to the Giants, that the hope is that, when they drafted someone like Theo Johnson, even Daniel Bellinger, and brought in Darren Waller, you've got these 6'5", 6'6" guys who are going to be huge targets for the quarterback. Hasn't really worked until now, but we've got a new quarterback, a new situation. Maybe this year's the year, right? So Fedone, a fun fact about him that's really interesting. So he played at Nebraska, but before he went to college, he came out of high school as being ranked higher than Brock Bowers. So out of high school, this guy was a freak, one of the best tight ends in the nation. And then unfortunately, he ended up tearing his ACL, the same ACL twice. So obviously dealing with some knee injuries, it is pretty much healed at this point, but I think that's one of the reasons why he probably fell to the 7th round, because reliability and being healthy are two huge factors as to whether or not you're actually going to have a good career in the NFL. So I think that's probably one of the reasons, why he fell, and obviously is a bit of a bummer. But he was an academic All Big Ten from 2022 to 2024, 8-time Nebraska Scholar Athlete honor roll, and then was on the citizenship team in 2021 and 2024. So, again, it goes back to the smart, tough, dependable thing that this Giants front office really focuses on, is that the intelligence of these players is so important. And I agree with that. And I am glad that this is a focus of the Giants, because it also is going to lead, I think, as long as the players play up to the caliber that is expected of them, or maybe better, that there will be a lot of second contracts for these players, because obviously the intelligence is going to help him make smart decisions on and off the field. It's going to help them learn them scheme, adjust to the scheme better, become a better football player. But it's also going to help alleviate some of those off the field issues. And, this is something that the Giants really haven't focused on in the past with Kadarius Toney and Sam Beal and Josh Brown, and the list goes on, right? So I think that this is really important, and I'm glad that that's become a focal point for them. So one last thing on Thomas Fedone. This man tattoos himself. I want you to think about that for a second. If anyone's ever had a tattoo, I do. I don't like needles, but it was not as bad as I thought. It's very small. It's an anchor on my finger. So not that bad. But just the thought of tattooing yourself is so insane to me. So when we talk about the tough part of the smart, tough, dependable, put this guy in. I want to see what he can do. He's recovered from 2 ACLs and he tattoos himself. I've seen all I need to see. Let's throw this guy in there with the 2s or 3s. Russ Wilson, throw him a deep ball. Let's see how it goes, because I'm on board with that. I like the toughness of a guy like that. So let's move along to Corey Black, who was the final pick for the Giants in the draft. And I know that everyone will be wildly surprised to hear that he came in for a top 30 visit for the Giants, because pretty much everyone that they drafted has also come in for a top 30 visit. He is 6 feet, 192 pounds. He played for 5 years in college at Oklahoma State, finishing with 62 games and 38 starts. Played a lot as a freshman and sophomore, and then ended up starting his last 2 years. And his 38 starts at Oklahoma State is the most on the defense for his final year in college. So in 2024, he was voted a captain, so obviously has that leadership capability that also has been a big focus for the Giants on the players that they've drafted. He was an honorable mention All Big 12 selection, one of 5 defenders to start all 12 games during the season, and he was ranked number 1 on the team, number 8 in the Big 12, and number 53 in the FBS, with 3 total interceptions on the year. So again, I don't know if I would label him a ball hawk, but what I will tell you is that he has good instincts and has good ball skills to be able to have that many interceptions in a season, on top with being number 1 on the team, 8 in the Big 12, and 53 in college football as a whole with that many interceptions. He had 1 interception each against South Dakota State, Kansas City, and BYU, and he was the captain against Arkansas and Colorado. So some pretty decent stats in college. He was a 7th round pick. So I kind of look at this as like maybe a Trey Hawkins type of player where, the best case scenario is maybe he gets a couple starts or he's in the rotation at corner. And the worst case is he was a 7th round pick in the draft. And if he ends up on the practice squad or, a late pick on the roster and someone who only goes in if someone is injured, then so be it. The Giants also brought in some cornerbacks that are UDFAs, so I'm really curious to see how that room shapes out, but I think we all know what the starters are going to be, and I don't think there's going to be any changes to that, but it's nice to know that there could be some options who could be involved in potentially a backup situation. So with that being said, let's move over to Cam Scataboo, who I know is a favorite for a lot of us. And one of the questions I got when I did my Q&A today was how does Eric Gray fit into the running back room now that they have drafted Scataboo? And the way I see it is it's going to be Singletary is going to be the starter with Tracy as the number 2 and Scataboo as the number 3. And I think that Eric Gray is probably going to be a casualty. I think they will keep 3 running backs on the roster. And I think that ultimately Gray will end up being a practice squad type of guy. They have tried to force him into the special teams role, and that's not his specialty. So let's stop with that. And, let's let Scataboo be the back. Devin Singletary is in his last year with the Giants. So I think that the ideal situation is that they become the thunder and lightning of this generation, right? Is that they become the Brandon and Jacobs of the 2020s maybe, or 2025 to 2030. And, you've got Tracy and Scataboo as your backs. So Scataboo is a freak. I just want you guys all to know that he is the only running back outside of Christian McCaffrey in one season to have 1,500 plus rushing yards and 500 receiving yards. So I have heard all I needed to hear. Love that about him. And I just think he's a great running back, and I'm really excited that the Giants ended up bringing him in. He had 21 rushing yards in 2024. So at Arizona State, the 1,500 plus rushing yards, it was actually 1,711, and he set a single season school record by doing that. He averaged 178.2 scrimmage yard per game last season. He was only one behind Ashton Genty. Ashton Genty was the only other running back in this entire deep, very good running back class to beat him. 178 scrimmage yards a game is absurd. First player since 2007 to be named the Peach Bowl offensive MVP from a losing team. That game, I don't know if you guys watched it, the Peach Bowl, Arizona State lost in double overtime to Texas. It was a hell of a game, very good. And, he had an incredible game. So in that game alone, he had 30 carries for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. On top of that, he had 8 catches, for 99 yards. He also threw a 42-yard touchdown. I want to see him in the Wildcat this year. What the hell? Why not? Right? At least do it once. So anyway, I think there's a lot to love about Cam Scataboo. I think anyone who's followed or watched him a little bit last year, you guys will all agree with that. Great pick. I can't believe that the Giants got him where they did at 105, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. So we talked a little bit about the running back room. Let's talk about how these players are going to fit in. And we also talked a little bit about Corey Black with the corners. So I think when you look at the Giants draft picks, from Abdul Carter, he's going to be a rotational piece, I think, from the get-go. My assumption is that Shane Bowen has the plan where he's going to have Burns and Kayvon be the starters, and he's going to have Carter in the rotation. Maybe he's going to use him as an outside linebacker. He obviously has experience doing that for 2 years before he ended up switching to an edge rusher. So his versatility, I think, is really going to come in handy, especially for his rookie year with the Giants. Jackson Dart, I think he's going to end up sitting this whole year, but I think that ultimately that could work out to be the best for him and help him become a good quarterback in the NFL. So I think he's going to be the number 3 behind Russell and Jameis. And then, of course, Tommy DeVito, I think, is going to be a practice squad guy. Who's next? Darius Alexander. So I think that he is definitely going to be in the rotation for day one next to Dexter Lawrence. I don't think there's going to be any question that we see this guy as a starter at some point during the season. Is it going to be week one? I really don't know. DJ Davidson is coming back from an injury. They still have Jordan Riley. As of right now, they still have Nacho. Time will tell. Nacho could be a cut candidate. So I think if Nacho does get cut, then we could see Darius Alexander end up getting the starter there. They also brought in Chauncey Golston in free agency, so he's going to be in the mix. So we're going to get our first real good look at this during training camp, who's really gets the most snaps with the ones. So when that happens in July, I think there's going to be a lot to discuss at that point. Next up is Cam Scataboo, who we already talked about, Marcus Bo, who we talked about a little bit. I keep on calling him Embo just because that M is there. It's pronounced Bo, not Embo. But anyway, I think he is going to be the backup right tackle to Jermaine Illuminor. I think that's going to be the plan for him. I think Evan Neal's going to be in the rotation with the guards. And I think that, if it all works out, he will end up beating Stone Forsythe and James Hudson for the swing tackle position or for the backup right tackle. Thomas Fedon. So let's talk about the tight ends for a second, because we have Daniel Bellinger and we have Theo Johnson, both players who this front office has drafted. They also re-signed Chris Manhertz to a one-year deal, who was on the team last year. And then they also brought in Greg Dulcich this year, and now they have Thomas Fedon. So I think that the starting is probably going to be Bellinger, Manhertz, and Theo Johnson. I think that's probably going to be the starting three. And then Fedon could end up being a backup or a practice squad type of guy. But I'm curious to see between him and Dulcich, because Dulcich got some reps last year and was okay, not great, not awful. So curious to see how that falls out. But I think there's no question that Manhertz is probably going to get that third string role, and then we'll just see how camp goes, which is going to be the biggest indicator. And then same thing for Corey Black, right? Our starters on the outside are going to be Banks and Adebo. The slot corner is going to be Drew Phillips. Then you've got Cordell Flott. You've got Corey Black. And then you've got, a couple other guys that they've had from last year, or guys that they're brought in UDFAs. I'm sure they will bring in some guys post June 1st cuts. So I think there's really going to be a lot of competition for the backups, although I ultimately feel like the starting is going to be what it is. And I just hope that Tay Banks can get his crap together and end up being a really good starter for this football team, because that's what we need. I have high hopes for Adebo. He is feeling really good after that foot injury, and I just really want to see him be a strong corner. And, Phillips is going to be at full strength this year. He had a really nice year last year before he got injured. So I have high hopes for the corners and the rest of the secondary, and just, it's up to Shane Bowen to put them in a position to succeed, and then it's up to the players to execute. So time will tell if they do. Stay tuned for more Giants talk.